Hello! Hi, friends! Thank you so much for being here. My name is Shayda Campbell, and today we're going to do a live painting tutorial together. It's been a minute since I've done a live stream on YouTube. I definitely think it was like COVID era, COVID times. So yeah, it's been a few years. Although I feel like COVID was like 1 year ago. So when people are like, it was 5 years ago, that's very weird. But today I'm excited to paint together. If you have to run out or you can't watch the whole thing, don't worry. This will be posted to my channel as a regular video right after, so you can watch and paint along anytime you like. Thank you for saying hello in the chat. It's wonderful to see where everyone is watching from. It's so cool. People are tuning in from all around the world, which is always exciting. I can see the chat here, and Chris is also running the live stream. That's my husband, and there he is. And he will be moderating the chat as well. So if I'm painting and you have a question or a comment, feel free to just keep those questions coming. And if I miss it, I'll get to it, and you won't interrupt me or anything like that. So I definitely, want you to ask and comment, and feel free to do so anytime. Yeah, been a minute since we've done a live stream, but it is something that we're planning to do more of throughout the summer, especially. So if you want to make sure to, if you're watching this later and you want to make sure to tune in for the second one live, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, but also follow along on Instagram at Shayda Campbell if you can. It's just easier to kind of send out messages there as opposed to on YouTube where you're doing like these big videos. Anyway. But they will always be announced everywhere, and the time, we'll try to change the times around a bit so we can include different audiences and whatnot. And I also do a live painting tutorial every month on my Patreon. That is a paid thing, but it is a very intimate group, so you get to ask lots of questions. And so if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, check it out at patreon.com/Shayda Campbell, and that is the $10 USD tier if you're interested. Yeah, it's every month we get together and paint and kind of hang out. So yes, today we are going to be painting pansies together. I'm really excited to show you what I've been working on lately. I've got my desk set up here, and we'll talk about supplies in a minute. But while we let people come in and say hello, why don't I just show you what I've been working on? So this is a practice painting for generally what we'll be doing today. A jar. I love painting. I love creating arrangements and putting them in these cute little jars. So that's what we're painting, and this is the practice piece. There's also a sketch available on my Patreon. It's free to everybody. If you are interested in that, you can go grab that anytime, and it's available to download and print, and you don't have to pay anything. That is for everybody, so I'm excited for you to have that if you feel like that would be something that is helpful. All right, let me show you what else we've got here. So this is another little practice sketch that I did, just a sweet little jar. I try to be a little bit more too abstract or be a little bit more impressionistic these days. I try to paint how the flowers kind of make me feel, so capturing a bit of movement. Yes, I just saw your comment, Victoria. It is Tiptree Jam. And that's so cool that you live near the factory. You kind of have to look for this, like in Canada. It's like not at every grocery store. It's like at British stores, or like probably at Walmart, like in the British section, which is kind of fun. So I love Tiptree jam jars and Bon Maman jam jars from France. So there you go. Those are my favorites. And I just broke mine, and then I had to finish a jar of jam, but that was no big sacrifice. Okay, another one that I just did this week. This is from last summer. So you can see how my style has changed over the years if you've been here for a minute. And what I do now is I'll start with a pencil sketch, and that is what we're going to do today. And then I will add watercolor or watercolor gouache. Today we will be using watercolor. I'm going to use my little Shayda Campbell set, but any watercolors will do. And then I typically will finish the piece with more pencil, more graphite, or even a little bit of colored pencil. So this one you can see I just used pencil, whereas this one is the colored pencil. Anyways, let's get started on our painting. That's kind of what I've been working on. Oh, and this one is actually the last one we did together on Patreon. So if that sounds interesting to you, this is like kind of the stuff we work on together every month. Okay, let's put those aside and get painting. So we'll talk supplies really quickly. I am using hot pressed paper. The reason I like hot pressed is because it has a very smooth texture with very little tooth. That means it's great for mixed media. Cold pressed has a little more tooth and texture. So I love the way it absorbs the wet media, but sometimes drawing on it with pencil is just a little bit more of a thing. And then, of course, we're using the Shayda Campbell watercolor palette. Finally have my own watercolors after 10 years, you guys. And it has a selection of colors that I personally chose, and I just love all the colors in here. The paint quality is excellent. It's a really good price point as well, and I've gotten lots of lovely comments from people who have purchased it. So I feel very confident in saying that if you can get your hands on it, you will love it. And it's available on Amazon.com, and I believe on Amazon.uk as well. Okay. And if you're in Europe and it is available, let me know, because it can be a little bit tricky for me to find these things out. So there's the palette when it's open. Looks so pretty. And then I've got a few brushes here. If you've been here for a minute, you know that I love the Velvet Touch brushes from Princeton. So today I am using a couple round brushes. And I have a number 6 and a number 8 here. So round brushes.
Laura just said I use my Shayda Campbell watercolors every day in my sketchbook.
Oh, I love that. Me too.
It's out of stock in the UK.
Okay, I mean that's like good and bad. Just keep checking back, and Amazon has to see that people really want it, and then they'll stock more, because that happened in the US at first as well. So yeah, I wish I had a little more control, but because I want it stocked through a large company and available on Amazon, I don't have the control over the small things, but we can ship to a more international audience. So let me show you my paint brushes here. The round brushes are great because they have a large belly, holds lots of paint, and then come to a really nice fine point. And then I've also gotten really into using a filbert brush, which has this rounded tip, and it's very thin. It's great for creating organic and natural looking petal shapes and leaf shapes. And then I have my little drawer full of pencils and whatnot. I always start with a mechanical pencil, just because I like that I don't have to sharpen it. So I prefer that to sharpening over and over. But I'm using a mechanical pencil for the initial sketch. I've got a nice soft eraser here, so just a little nubbin. And then later on, when we add more pencil, I will switch to an 8B or a 6B. And these are just like a nice, these are from Faber-Castell, but you're just looking for those numbers realistically. The 8B and 6B are very soft leads, and then you're going to want to have a pencil sharpener handy so that you have a very nice sharp pencil. But let's get started. This is what my jar looks like today. So I did freshen it up with one more flower. If you want to just paint from the sketch, that's fine. We're going to talk about, how to approach the pansies, how to approach the jar. So don't feel like I've diverted too much. And thank you, Kathy, who said, I love, love, love your new style. I do love the addition of the gouache as well. And I know a lot of people will say like, oh, I got gouache, but I'm scared to use it. And I say like, remember, you're the artist. Only you can decide how to use the art supplies that you bought. Don't worry about using things wrong. Try to look at it as just like having fun and just trying the supplies, see what works for you. Use it in a way that feels fun. You don't have to worry about like right and wrong. At least that's my perspective. So I will begin, usually when I'm looking at a bouquet like this, I will pick out something like this flower right here and just say, okay, that's my starting point. And that is going to be the thing that I draw first, and then everything else kind of, I move out from there, trying to make sure that in the initial sketch that things are just sort of the right size. I don't care about drawing them perfectly. I just want things to be not like wackadoodle when it comes to, having a giant flower in a tiny vase or something like that. So let's begin. Also, how you arrange the flowers matters. Make an arrangement that looks pretty to you and then draw a pretty arrangement. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, I think. Okay, let's begin. I'm just going to move those out of the way. So beginning with that initial flower, I'm going to start right here and do the side petal. I'm going to draw a little bit darker than I normally would so that it's not like impossible to see what I'm doing. And then that bottom bit is kind of like a heart shape. I mean, I don't mind if things look a little weird. Those kind of come together. And then we'll put a little circle in there. We could Okay, I'm just drawing a little bud there. We've got a whole bunch of leaves, 1 leaf, 2 leaf, 3 leaf, 4 leaf, and then there's one more flower over here. Let's go to me again.
Sorry, we lost audio for a second.
Oh.
But we're back now. Sorry about that, guys.
Sorry, guys. All I was saying, let's go to me for a sec here. In terms of the, what I was talking about is that I'm really excited to show you when we paint how you can kind of just put a bunch of leaves in the middle and you can make this green mess, and then you can separate the leaves better when you paint. So you don't worry about drawing every leaf. You don't worry about drawing anything. You can make a quick sketch and sort it out later. And okay. Just looking at the chat. Okay. And I saw Jaw's family have surgery in a few days. I just wanted to send you a big hug, and I hope everything goes well. And creativity is a great distraction for this kind of stuff. It's a great place to put your mind, I think, at any time. So what I want to do next is this guy over here, and he's kind of facing away from me. So this is a good example of you can just kind of make a messy, like sketchy bit. Let's go back to me. Oops. And there we go. I'm going to just draw like a big fluffy old petal over here. And then there's one kind of falling away from the bottom and one over here, and then a bit of green there. And you can see the stem. So everything's kind of messy and crazy, and that's okay. And then we have a bit of the upper jar here. And usually for the top of the jar, I'll just do a few round lines that are curved to show the rings on the jar, and then we'll drop down, and I just do like a very messy rounded rectangle with rounded corners. There we go. That might even be a little bigger than I need. Kathy, that's a great question. Do you ever use Procreate for the initial sketch? Yes, I do. I find Procreate to be very helpful. If you follow along on my Instagram, I have been talking a bit about how I have been working on a series of postcards of my hometown, Stratford, Ontario, and I was doing them all in watercolor and ink or pencil. Eventually, I just wasn't getting it right. It was so much easier to take it into Procreate, and I could really play around there without feeling like, oh, I'm wasting paper and blah, blah, blah. So absolutely, I find digital drawing to be really a nice a nice tool to have in your toolkit. I don't do it all the time, but absolutely. So there's my very messy jar. We're just gonna put the label In this case, the label is over a little bit more to the side, kind of right up against what I can see over here. You always want to have this area where it kind of drops down to the curve, and then there's like a line there. That's where the shape of the glass changes ever so slightly. We're going to put some, leaves and whatnot in there, and some little hint at little stems. A lot of that we can do with watercolor. So let's begin painting, shall we? Okay.
So you could move the flower so you can see the whole thing.
Like put these here? I certainly can. There is that sketch on Patreon if you want.
The link to the sketch is in the description.
Yeah, it's not like you can just sort of see the top down, sorry guys, but the link to the sketch, and there's a photo in the description as well. And what I really want to talk about is also more like the techniques that we're going to use when it comes to painting pansies, painting glass and water, and how to separate stems and leaves and create division while not making things too stiff. So that's kind of what we're going to discuss. If you want to, you could just draw one pansy with some leaves in a jar, and it doesn't need to be the exact same. I hope that's helpful. And then there is another sketch on Patreon. It's like slightly different, but mostly the same. Okay, I'm going to grab my large round brush. So that's the number 8. But if that is helpful at all, those are in the shot a bit more. And then I'm going to move this over so you guys can really see what I'm doing. I want to get the water in the shot so that you can see when I go in for more water. And this is just a plastic palette that I use because the set of watercolors is a travel set. So sometimes you just need a little more space. And why don't we begin with the pansies? So I'm starting with white. So I always love to mix a little white into my watercolors. Okay, there we go. And then I will use a bit of ultramarine. And then there's a great magenta in here. I always forget what it's called. Purple Lake. That's it up here. It's such a great pink. There's also this rose madder hue down here, which is another great, like a more true magenta. There we go. Here, let me turn this around, actually. Or would that, that's pretty small, but at least you guys could see it. Okay. Mixing more white, and then you can just play around with mixing a bit of blue or mixing in a little more magenta, whether it's the rose madder hue or the purple lake. And put a little more water in there. A little more white. I like white. In fact, yeah.
I can try and put the image from the thumbnail on there so they can see the front view.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I'm going to give that a go. We're new to the software we're using to live stream, so if there's some glitches, sorry about that.
We're going to get better and better every time. I was just looking at my very first YouTube video, which is 10 years old this last month. And everybody was like, your camera angles are horrible. And I was just reading that I had commented, I'm sorry guys, I'm new to this and I'm going to get better. It was like fun to go back. I think I filmed it on like a tablet that I got for free when I opened a bank account. Anywho, let's get into it. So I've got this really, really light purple. So there, I want you to be able to see when I grab extra water. Let's start with this guy right in the front. And we are going to, pretty much paint the whole. Definitely need to be able to get to my paper towel. If you have too much paint on your brush, you lose control of it. So I'm going to wet the brush and just kind of bleed that color out so it's like very light. I'm going to put more water in there and then just do this like really free, more white to make sure it's really light. I also have a bit of paper towel here, and that is for lifting. Lifting is a great way to get natural looking highlights. And just to also kind of have a way of erasing if you need to erase at any point. Sometimes pansies tend to be a little darker on the edges of the petals. So let's go and do a little of that. We don't have to get crazy with it. And I also like to go outside of my sketch a little. I don't stay true to that sketch. I want it to look a little crazy and messy. And then let's come up here. This top pansy is like, the petals are extremely, extremely light and a bit more bluey. So I'm just adding like so much white. And then for the back petals, we'll just go like that. Wash the brush, blend it out a bit. It's super messy and free, and I love that. Lift a little to give you like that really light natural color. There we go. And then you can always add a bit more color back in. And that is a wet into wet technique where you're just adding more pigment into wet media, and the watercolor kind of does the work for you because it blends out and bleeds out in this really lovely natural way. And then I'm going to take more of that beautiful purple lake and more ultramarine and more rose madder hue. And I've got this great dark purple color. And we are just going to paint those 3 petals. And I don't really mind if they bleed a little bit. That's probably a little bit more than I need. Let's take that up a bit. Thank you guys for coming into the chat and saying where you're watching from. I just love that. And hello, and thank you for being here. There we go. I like how that just looks a little messy. And then if it doesn't look messy enough, if it looks a little too stiff, then that's where your lifting comes in. And then you can lift, and then you can layer more, and then you can, you know, lift a bit more and layer again. So you can really play and have fun with it. And then you can just go in with a wet brush and mess it up a bit. Hello to everybody watching in Spain and South Africa. That's so cool. There we go. And then over here, we've got another really pale flower. So I'm just going to go crazy like this. Maybe make it, I'm going to warm that purple up like the slightest little bit. There we go. Super messy and free. And then I've got a little bud up here. I'm just going to go like boop, boop. That's all that really needs. Hello, Carol in England. You have a sunny day in England and you're with us painting indoors. That is so nice of you. There we go. Just like some messy brush marks, and we'll call that a bud. Okay, and then let's talk about green a little bit. Cecilia, thank you for your interest in the watercolor set. Yeah, I don't know if it's available on Amazon EU yet. If you check back, hopefully it will be. I don't know if you're able to order from the US or the UK Amazon. Like sometimes in Canada with certain products, you can order from those other Amazons. But yeah, we just need Amazon to see the interest and pick it up. And I was talking a little bit about that earlier, just saying that when you're selling a product as a small business owner, you kind of have to decide like what the priority is. And we a long time ago decided that it just wouldn't be possible for us to, you know, like stock our own stuff, like the shipping costs from Canada. And we used to live in PEI. It would have been crazy shipping prices. So we hope that a big company like Dixon Ticonderoga would come along and want to do a set together. And they did last year. And it is available on Amazon, but we don't have the control of like whether Amazon stocks it or if they run out, when do they get more. So it's sort of like you just have to decide. So yeah, I'm so sorry for those of you that can't get it, but we hope that it will just get more and more traction and be available in more and more places as people are searching for it. And
Actually, I'm curious. We could
Yeah.
potentially be selling it from here, but the shipping would be more expensive for everyone, but it would make it available to
Yeah, that's-
essentially everyone. So I'm just
that's
curious
true.
if people would be interested in that.
yeah,
It
Like-
would be more cost for
For
everybody.
for the consumer,
but
but
it would make it more readily available.
yeah, like
So
we
if people are
could
interested
ship
in
it.
that, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, that's a good point. Chris and I could be shipping it. And then we kind of get the best of both worlds, but the expense, of course. So what I'm doing here is this is a beautiful olive green, and then there's a really nice sap green in this set as well. And I usually mix those two together with lots of water. And I like to mix in a little bit of brown, and I'm using burnt umber, and that just gives me a nice earthy green. Also, you can mix in a little red or magenta. What we're going to do, we're going to put a whole bunch of water into that, wash the brush, and just take a really light watery green. I still want it to be like bright and pigmented, so I'm going to use that sap green. And then I'm just going to go like that and put some messy brush strokes there, kind of like so. And then I'm gonna take a little more sap green. I want this to look somewhat bright. And we're gonna paint in some of these leaves. And we'll come back to this in a minute, and I'll show you how I take just those messy brush strokes and kind of turn them into a bunch of separate leaves. Let me turn this back around for you guys. We're gonna paint this leaf in the back a slightly darker. Mix in a little bit more burnt umber. There we go. Bernadette, I feel your comment. Watercolor is hard. Watercolor is hard, and it's hard because if you make a mistake, you're not just gonna come back tomorrow and put some, another layer down and do it over again. There are paintings that I have loved, and I've messed them up right at the end. Watercolor can be highly frustrating. I do think it is one of the trickier painting styles, but it also has a low barrier to entry where you can just get a little travel set and get started. And when I began this channel, my channel was all about like making simple but beautiful art. And things have morphed and changed over the years, but that's still at the heart of what this channel is. Doing a lot with a little, I would say, is kind of my brand. Painting some leaves on the edge of a menu or something like that, or making little note cards and just keeping it simple. So that's what I love watercolor for. But I agree, I love acrylic as well. And I'm interested in trying oil. Just gotta make the time, I'm gonna get around to it. Let's see here. Let's do, while we wait for this to dry, so we've just done some messy green, light green here. We're gonna come up here with a slightly more concentrated green. Oh, I probably have a little too much paint in my brush, which means I'm not gonna be in control of it. And we're just gonna do some messy brush strokes. And then we're gonna do like a little messy brush stroke there. Doesn't really match up with the leaves that I drew. That's fine, doesn't matter. And then we're gonna come over here, and I'm mixing a little bit of yellow into my green. There we go. Yes, I find library books very inspiring when it comes to finding new hobbies and learning new things. There's a messy leaf. There's a messy leaf. You can see I'm just trying to do a messy brush stroke, but not like mess up my pansies that I already painted. And if the color looks a little flat, you could always lift a bit. Very into lifting these days. There we go. I think that's looking really good. Okay, I missed over here. Let's put that guy in. Little swoosh of the brush, like so. There we go. Just messy. And then there's the stem that goes into the jar. I love it. And it does look a bit flat. The green is just all the same color. So there, we'll just lift a little bit. Okay, this is going great. I want to move down and paint the jar. So we'll talk a little bit about glass and water. Those are big topics, and there's something I've been, practicing for a while over the past year, especially. But I don't think they need to be tricky, not at all. So let's get into it. I'm going to start by creating a nice gray for the glass and the water. I start with white. There's lots of water in there because there was some water sitting on the palette. Lots of white. And then one of my favorite grays is just like a little hint of Payne's gray. A little bit more. Payne's gray is sort of a blue gray. Oh, that looks good. Nice light gray. Always add more water. And then I'll just put like a little hint of burnt umber in there. And I like that. A little bit more water. Okay, we've got the water, it lightens the color, but of course it also makes it very transparent, which is what we are going for here. Let me see. So most of the leaves are sort of concentrated at the top of the jar, and we don't see a lot down below near the label. So what we're going to do is we're going to think for a second about where we want to see a highlight. And I'm going to let there be a highlight kind of right below the place where the jar goes from curved to straight. That's always like a natural spot to leave a highlight, and highlights are the easiest thing to do because all you have to do is not paint there. Just don't let any wet media go there, and you're good to go. Your wet paint, although it moves and travels on that paper, cannot go anywhere onto dry paper. And then I actually meant to leave a little highlight over here. That's okay, we can lift a bit there. And we'll leave a little highlight down here in the corner. Just pick a few areas and don't paint there, basically.
Irene asked, why do you use white if you want transparency?
Oh, I wanted to lighten it up slightly. I like the way that white is going to make this like a very light gray. But you certainly don't need to, and that's a personal preference. There we go. So there's a few areas, small highlights there, and we've just got this generally gray jar. And then while it's wet, I might add like a little bit more pigment at the base, a little darker there. I think I could use a little bit more burnt umber in here. There we go. And we're going to put a little bit of darker color here. We're just trying to give the look of, this glass and water and shadow. And so just if you create a little arrangement in your own little jam jar, look for areas that are just slightly darker. And then if you want an area lighter, you can always do your lifting. Let's leave that. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe I'll add, let's put a little more gray and a little more burnt umber in there. And then we'll just do like a bit darker over here. Bit darker across the base. There we go. We can always come back in later and do a bit more. Watercolor, when you're doing a little wet into wet like that, and even the lifting, it's all about the timing. If it's still puddle wet, you're going to get a lot of blending and bleeding of the color. If it's a little drier, you're going to have a little more control, but get like a nice blend. So what I want to do, while that is drying ever so slightly, is mix up a darker green. And so I'm going to take my olive green, making sure I don't have white on my brush. And I'm going to mix in a little bit of that Payne's gray, actually. Just want this nice dark color, a little bit of burnt umber. That's giving like this really nice natural green. The brown, the bluey gray, You can use the sap green or the olive green, and there we go. And then with that really dark color, we can actually start creating a little bit of division. So I might just add like some dark green down here, just a slight little triangle.
Mia said, I love watercolor flowers, but often make the paintings a little bit dirty.
Mm.
Maybe you need more patience.
I'd love to talk about that. Let's talk about that in a sec. I just want to say this is drying now. It's slightly drier. So what we're going to do while this is still slightly wet, because this is the area that is under the water, we're just going to take our brush and do some like little vertical brush strokes. Maybe I even misjudged it and it was still too wet. Honestly, that's not a big deal. You just want to get it while it's a little bit wet, because you want it to blend so that it looks a little blurry, like, oh, there's all the stems and they're kind of blurred and you can't, you know, it's an easy way to give the impression that that area of the painting is underwater. Let's just do a little bit more there. I think that's all we really need. Okay. So the question is like, they sort of looks a little bit dirty. Mm-hmm. There's a couple reasons that could happen. I think sometimes if you're going over stuff again and again, that could be an issue. And that's kind of what we were just talking about with the, like, it's so nice when you're painting with acrylics, you can be like, that one flower wasn't right. I'm going to paint over, put some white down and just start fresh. And you can't do that with watercolor, not really. Like, you can lift a bit and then try again. And I find that sometimes I just have gone over a spot too much and it gets to a place where it looks like a bit muddled and it just doesn't look like fresh. I find with watercolor, what you want is you really want to get it on the first go and you see that nice blending and it just looks like, yeah, like I was really in control that day. And that doesn't always happen. Maybe at the end we could talk a little bit more about that and I could show you some examples if we have time. But yeah, I hope that's helpful. It can also have to do with color mixing. If you mix like black into your colors, that could give it a murky or muddy look. Some people would say mixing the opposite color on the color wheel, like putting red or magenta into your greens because they are opposite, that could create a muddy look. But I actually like that. As I was saying, for me to have an earthy green, I want to mix in a little red or a little brown. So, you know, it's also personal style, but if they are looking muddy, it could have to do with those things. So if any of that sounds like I'm on the right track, let me know. So we've got kind of our blurry green. And now what I want to do, actually, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush just so I have lots of control. What I want to do now is take the darker green that we made, that we mixed, and we're going to come in here and we are going to paint some thick areas. And this is going to help make it look as though there are thin, light areas such as stems. So there we go. Let's do a bit of that. It could even look like there are leaves if we leave kind of a leafy area. So you can see how I'm kind of trying to paint around the area. I did see that question about putting it closer, but I just get so many requests for people to be able to see the water and see every move that I make. So we did it as close as we possibly could.
I've actually been trying to zoom it in the software. So I'm going to give that a go.
Okay.
I'm just worried it's going to have bad resolution. So if anyone sees an issue, just let me know and I'll switch it back, okay?
Yeah, that's great. Am I a gardener? I'm like a gardener in training. My mom is an avid gardener. She has a beautiful garden. And she is helping me with my garden. We bought our first home a few years ago. And since then, I've been kind of learning. It has quite a bit of garden in the back. So I've kind of been learning and figuring things out as I go. So you can see how just doing some little messy, basically V shapes there, it really helps it look like all of a sudden you've got these stems. And then anywhere down here where we might want to, we can add a little bit of dark color. It can be a rectangle, it can be a little wiggle. It just gives your piece such depth to do just that little bit. Over here we could do that. It really makes things pop. Maybe we're going to do that a bit over here. And then I don't think up here we need it too desperately. We could make this stem a little darker, and that leaf, maybe add a bit of darker green at the base of that guy. Up here, anywhere where the sun wouldn't hit as easily. Favorite paper, yes, my absolute favorite, that's easy, that is Arches hot pressed. And you don't always need to paint on Arches because it is artist quality and you will pay for that. But if you're ready to do a finished piece, definitely Arches hot pressed. And as I was saying at the beginning, I love it because it has not a lot of tooth and texture, so that makes it great for doing mixed media. So if I want to do a sketch and then I want to add pencil crayon later, hot pressed is wonderful for that. This is an excellent paper as well. This is Saunders. It's from the same like factory where they make the Arches. And then my absolute favorite for like sketchbook, I love those Canson XL sketchbooks. They have a cold press 140 pound. They are a great entry level, and you can get them at Walmart, at least here in Canada. You don't have to like feel guilty about, using lots and lots because it's a great price point. Okay, the leaves are looking good. I'm gonna mix a little bit. I kind of want to make a medium green, and this leaf will be a little bit darker than this one in the foreground so that we can have some difference there. And you can also do a bit of shading on leaves, like, just do a little wiggle of the brush and all of a sudden that leaf has a bit more something. Does that make sense? Got a bit more going on. There we go. Little wiggle. You don't have to do it on all of them. That's my curse. If something looks good once, I'll do it like a million times. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. You could just do that in one spot. Okay, and then I'm taking a slightly darker green and I'm doing kind of the same thing down here where we just want to show that there are in fact some difference in the stems, and we want to have that blur that we got, but we also want to have kind of a little bit more structure as well, so it doesn't just look like a blur. The water hasn't created that much of a blurred effect. That's actually still a bit wet, so let's leave it a little. And then I want to do a really dark purple for our pansies. So let's grab some of that Purple Lake. Let's grab some ultramarine. And let's grab some French gray. Payne's gray, because it is a blue gray, so it'll mix nicely with that magenta and give us a beautiful, really dark purple. And that's what we're going to use up here. And just do some little vertical lines there, fanning out. I also like to just go like that and just do like a messy splotch. Same thing over here, just so it doesn't look too perfect. And you can lift a little. Okay, there we go. And then over here, I don't think we need that purple to be quite so dark for these lighter pansies. Let's mix in a little bit more of the Purple Lake. I would even mix white in potentially because I want it to be this pastel-y purple. Let's try it. I'm just going to do kind of a splotch. Yeah, I like that color. Another splotch over here. Maybe make it a bit more transparent with some water. Yeah, I like that a lot. There we go. This guy over here, you can kind of see some purple. That's probably a little too heavy, so I'm just going to add water and then lift. If you add a bit of water in and then do your lift, you can get rid of even more color, create kind of that natural look. Let's add a little bit of darker color to the base of that bud. That's looking good. And then a thing that is fun to do is to take a sort of light, really light version of that, just a little bit. I can't quite read that bottom comment there from Pia.
Which course of yours teaches how to make these little floral bouquets?
I think this is something I've started doing in the last year. So, and all my courses are at least a year old. But if you want to get into more advanced watercolor, the Flower Power is a course that's really close to my heart, because beginner content obviously is so important, because we're trying to encourage people just to pick up a paintbrush, and there's always more beginners out there. Flower Power is a course that I wanted to make for a much smaller audience, but for those of you that are kind of like, yeah, I know what paper type I like, and I have my brushes and my paints, I don't need an explanation of that. For those of you that want to see a little bit more how I approach different flowers, how I created my own style. Flower Power gets into the question of how can you create your own unique artistic style. So I would definitely look into that one, and you can check that out on my website. Okay, I'm just doing a little bit more like of a light purple, a bit of white. What I wanted to do was kind of, do some little thin brush strokes, and you can kind of create a little bit of an interesting color on the pansy petals. And you can do as much of this as you like, and that's totally up to you. You might say, ooh, let's get a little more blue. I want to put a little hint of blue up there, or I could really spend all day like lifting and playing around with different colors on these petals. But they could also be totally done right now. I think they look great. I think they look loose. You could also come back in with your colored pencils and do little delicate little lines on all the petals. And so you could play around with this all day, really. It's a lot of fun doing this kind of stuff.
Creekside Homeschooler said, I have that class and it's amazing. I definitely leveled up my watercolor game, and I even teach watercolor now at our homeschool group.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's amazing. That's really how I see that course, is it gives you the skills to become the teacher, and yeah, to have your own style. So that's very cool. I love to hear that. That's amazing.
That'd be a good time to mention the bundle code.
Yes, okay. I should have mentioned all this at the beginning. We have a special sale for anyone watching this today. We are doing a one weekend sale for you guys on all of the bundles. So we have course bundles on our website, ShaydaCampbellCourses.com. And if you use code ShaydaLive, all one word, ShaydALive, Shayda Live, one word, that will get you 40% off any and all bundles on the site. So it's a very cool sale, and it's just for the weekend. So it ends Sunday night. So if you're interested in something, that's just a little something for you for showing up, for watching today and hanging out with me. Those pansies really come to life when you add a little like smack of yellow there, and I just make it a little messy so it doesn't look too stiff. And I'm just gonna add, with a bit more burnt umber, a little bit more Payne's gray. I can get this gray a little darker. And then I just like to take some of that dark color, go along the base of the jar, maybe blend it or blur it, but I just like to give the edge a little bit more. And that's something you can come back in and do with pencil as well. There we go. And we've got a nice highlight across the top here, which I think is great and helps this to appear as glass, which is exactly what it is. I'm sure this is dry, so why don't we just make a little bit of a darker area, and that immediately helps to give this the look that there are multiple stems there. And we can give this guy a little more shape. Maybe do one more little stem over there, and just giving a little more shape to what's in the jar, but not too much, or what's below the water would be a good way to say that. Okay, let's move on and do the label. I like to just put like a hint of a shadow on the label, something like that. There we go. And then we need to mix up like a dark blue or black. I think both look good. You can be true to exactly what is on the jar, or you can just say like, would this painting look good with a dark blue or a bright blue or whatever. So I've got a little bit of Payne's gray here that I'm just mixing with like ultramarine. It'll give me like a super dark concentrated blue. I want to make sure that I should have done that before. Make sure that's not too wet. And then I always do, Tiptree has like a little crest right at the top. So with a very washed out gray or blue, I just do like a few little smudges and dots, and that can help give me the look that there's a crest there. And then we'll come over here and we will just gonna outline it. And I always do the outline like a bit broken. And then I'll do more dots, darker dots on that crest. And then I'm going to do a little, I'm doing this a bit messy today, but that's okay. I think messy is good when it comes to this kind of stuff. So you've got kind of the shape of the logo, and then we're gonna, for Tiptree, we're just gonna do like a blah, 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 little angled, you can kind of see a single T there. And then we come down here. Oh, I'll start in the bottom. Sorry, this is so chaotic, like blah, blah, blah. But it is just a very messy process, and you're just kind of hinting at the numbers and letters and shapes that are there. Of course, you can be more precise about it. This is just a style that I've developed and that I really enjoy. And then we're gonna write, just put in, sometimes I do some letters. In this case, for the sake of time, I'm just gonna put some dots and lines and dashes and whatnot. There we go. And then I'll just put some lines here, and then we write, you know, strawberry. So I'll do an S and an R and a W, and then jam, J-A sort of M. Very messy, but that kind of gives you the idea. The only other bit of watercolor I want to do is a little bit of hint of darker up here on these lower petals, although you can do that in colored pencil as well. The only other thing I want to do is a little shadow. I'm actually going to mix a little purple in because I just think a purpley shadow would look pretty. I want lots of water so it's transparent. I kind of forgot to reach for the filbert. Sometimes once I get a certain brush in my hand, I just don't change it for better or worse. The filbert is great for petals and leaves, but it's super great for doing shapes like the shadow, where I just want, I could use more purple. I just want it to go like doot, doot, doot. And I just like the way the ends of the stroke is very rounded. There we go. And just has this really natural look. So that's, you know, the step one is complete. That is the painting complete. And then I think the nice thing is that you can continue now and add to it. So what I'm going to do today is not add colored pencil, but just add a little bit of graphite so that you can see my entire process, because that in doing this live is what I really wanted to share is how I'm approaching these paintings that I'm really enjoying doing.
Sorry, so Tiptree is actually a village.
Yeah, and is that the same Victoria that was saying you live
Yeah.
right by the factory? That I love that. We're learning about the jam. And it's very good jam too. Okay, let's just, the thing is, we did this first with our whatchamacallit, mechanical pencil. So doing it now with a very soft lead gives me the ability to kind of make some more dramatic lines, and that's exactly what I want to do. I just posted a similar tutorial, like very quick tutorial on Instagram, and I was saying I love coming back with the pencil because it allows you to really showcase the more tender bits, like edges of petals and the center of the flower, and just little things that can be a little bit tricky to capture. And let's do the edges of the jar again. And I just like to make things a bit messy at this point. I'll do the base of the jar. I'm gonna make sure that that logo or that label is really separate from other stuff. And sometimes I'll even do the petals, go around them twice or 3 times, so that gives them a sense of movement and motion. There we go. Yeah, I love the messy look as well. It just looks a little bit impressionistic, I like to think. The pencil is also good for adding in on the shadows. So if you have an area that you just want to darken, like the side of the jar over here, you can add quite a bit of drama quite easily, which I think is sort of nice. And you can also add in a little like table or horizon line, and that kind of gives it a nice look. It sets this jam in the scene.
Celeste, if I don't have a darker pencil, is using the fine liner okay?
Certainly. That's a totally your choice. I think fine liner can look really, really pretty. And I just did a Mother's Day card where I did a little bouquet of forget-me-nots and I used the fine liner. I just gave it to my mom, so I can't show you an example. I don't know if I have an example of that, but I think the fine liner is really lovely. And
Did you
that
post it?
I did post it, yeah. It's on Instagram. And the fine liner is so great when you're doing sketches. Like this is the last YouTube video from last week. We did this coastal granny. So you can see, yeah. Oh yeah, here.
There you go.
You can see, you know, not everything is flowers, obviously, but there's an example with the hydrangeas where I'm doing, you know, kind of the exact same sort of thing. Little messy lines, lumpy bits, little dots, and you're just hinting at the idea of a hydrangea, and you're using the fine liner, or a black brush pen is also great. That's what I actually used here, but it gives the same effect. You know, it's a black pen, whereas with, that's another one, black brush pen, whereas with this, yeah, that's the one. Whereas like with this one, I'm doing what we're talking about today, where I'm adding colored pencil at the end. Pia Arts is asking if I put anything on the painting. No, I do not seal my watercolor paintings. And go into the cupboard here. I got all my cupboards behind me with all my good stuff. So let me show you. I'll just do a little quick. And yes, Creekside Homesteaders is saying fine liners come in so many different colors. And that's another thing that we have talked about on the channel, is you can add a bit of brush pen on top of the watercolor. And if you saw the reel that I posted a few days ago where I'm drawing people, that's exactly what it was. Adding brush pen on top of watercolor gives you all the control of using a pen. And that is what my workshop week course is all about, is illustrating people. I'm really excited about it. We're doing a similar style here where we begin in pencil, we add watercolor, and then we go back in with markers and colored pencils. Workshop week is a free event. It's a week long, first week of June. There is a workshop every hour. It's all online. It's good for kids, adults. There's specifically kid workshops, a couple anyway. My workshop is about how to illustrate people, and it's free. It's all free. The link is in the video description. If you want to sign up, please use my link. I would love that. But yeah, you can come in all through that week and kind of hang out and see all these great tutorials. And it is a lot of fun. I mean, the vibes of workshop week are just, everybody's so positive and really builds each other up. Sometimes you do need a little encouragement when it comes to making art. And
Do you want me to show that image of the...
Yeah, show that. I'm gonna get the workshop week.
All right.
I'll show
That's on screen now.
Okay. I'm back. Okay, can I cut to?
Do you want to talk about the art, the image at all?
Oh, well, I think we did talk about it. Like, that's the fine liner look, and I think it's gorgeous, you know, if I do say so myself.
Okay, yeah.
And then this is the workshop week course. So similar thing, watercolor, and then you're adding, you know, some either marker and colored pencil. So you're building up all the details with a medium that hypothetically you're more comfortable with. Like, certainly even I am more comfortable with a pencil because we grow up using pencils and markers. So start with the watercolor and then add the detail with that secondary media. So yeah, if this looks of interest to you, please sign up. I would love to see you there. And just because I really do want to show you this, I think taking a bit of colored pencil, and you can just be so messy with it, which I really love about the colored pencil. And you do need them to be so sharp, I find. Like, you want to have messy lines, but they need a certain precision about them as well, I find. So let's get in there with this guy and just do some like thin lines. I love how that... because if you look closely at the pansies, they often do have those little thin lines and that texture to them. Another trick is you do not have to outline everything. You can, you know, outline part and then just leave it. So if you want the bottom to look a little bit more dramatic, just outline the bottom. Knowing what not to do, what not to draw is just as important as knowing what to draw. And another nice thing about the colored pencils is that you can take a really light color and you can do some, you know, veining on the leaves if that would help out. I think that looks kind of good, but you can also do darker areas on those leaves, kind of help differentiate one leaf from another. I think this is pretty much it, guys. Yes, please sign up for workshop week. If you thought this was fun today, workshop week is like this times a million. And Becca of the Happy Ever Crafter, fellow Canadian YouTuber, she runs it and she interviews most of the artists, come on for a live interview after the lesson plays. So you get to hear people's stories and it's really inspiring and fun. And there's lots of prizes and giveaways and coupons, and it's just a good fun artsy week. So use the link in the description to sign up. If you would like to be part of a live art tutorial like this every month, it's always an hour long. And we do, you know, basically this. If that sounds good to you, then definitely sign up over on my Patreon. It's the Daisy tier. That's where we do the art tutorial or like the live stream together. And then, of course, you have access to all the weekly bonus content that I post on YouTube. Like last week for that Coastal Granny Doodles, it was a coloring page and reference image. So there's always something that goes with the video. And then if you are interested in those e-courses, there is a special sale for you on the bundles. And if you are interested in something that's not a bundle, if you go to Instagram and look at my latest reels, you would find another code. It's not for as much, but it is another sale code. We're doing our spring sale at the moment, so there's like some codes floating around. But that code for 40% off bundles is in the video description. Paula, I'm so excited for you to be at Workshop Week for the first time. You're gonna love it. You are going to love it. And go follow the Happy Ever Crafter on Instagram or YouTube because she's running it and she'll be posting lots about it. And it's always a good time. I really enjoyed doing this with you. Yeah, it's just fun to show up and hear from you and see what's working and what's not. Don't ever feel bad. If there's something you feel like we could do better, we want to hear that. As I said, we're going to try to do more of these throughout the summer. I just think it's a fun way to show up on YouTube instead of a weekly video. You still get the weekly video, but you see everything. You see every brush stroke, every little bit of water, all those questions that are hard to answer, like how much water are you using or exactly what brush, or I feel like a live stream, like real-time tutorial is sort of like a broad answer to some of those trickier questions and things that you struggle with and that I struggle with. So hopefully it's helpful. Pia Arts, are the workshops, is it going to be recorded? That's a great question. So it is 40 or 41 workshops. It's free and you can sign up for free and then you can watch for free. But if you want to watch them after the day they air, you have 24 hours to watch every workshop. If you want unlimited access, I think it's like $49. So it's a really good price. And if you pay the $49 today, you can start watching the workshops right now. It's still definitely worth being there live for all the contests and the interviews and everything. But yeah, it's like less than a dollar. It's like $1 a workshop or something. So it's a crazy good. And the price goes up during workshop week. So if you buy now, yeah. But it's also totally free and you have a day to watch everything. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And thank you for all the sweet comments about how long you've been following along and watching. We're really excited to still be here and still be doing this. Things have changed a lot on social media. And I'm trying to show up authentically and show you what I'm actually working on. And sometimes that's scary and I've seen my style evolve, but I hope that just feels real and I hope in some way that is helpful. I'm not sure about the prizes on workshop week. That would be a question if you go follow them on Instagram. Yeah, okay. I think that's everything, guys. All of the, I'll see you at workshop week. Yes, I will. All of the info for Patreon, if you'd like to do a live stream like this once a month, and then you can actually request what you'd like to see painted, definitely go sign up. I'm trying to keep things like as accessible as possible. I know a lot of people charge like upwards of $50 a month for those intimate classes. Mine is only $10 US plus tax. So go sign up, and then the code for the sale is in the description as well. So if you're interested in these. Okay, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you. See you at workshop week and see you next week with a new YouTube tutorial. Bye guys. Bye.